Justin Baldoni has just delivered a legal counterpunch that Blake Lively likely didn't see coming, and certainly won't forget anytime soon. After the June 9th dismissal of his defamation claims, many assumed this battle was over, with headlines framing it as a clean win for Blake. But the story behind the ruling tells a very different tale. Far from conceding defeat, Baldoni's legal team is now striking back with a fresh and explosive complaint that digs deep into what they allege are some of the most manipulative tactics in Lively's arsenal. What began as a Hollywood workplace dispute has spiraled into one of the most high-stakes courtroom dramas of the year. One filled with whispers of influence, legal maneuvering, and media spin that no one saw coming. On June 9th, the judge presiding over the case dismissed Justin Baldoni's defamation claims, but not because of a lack of evidence or credibility. The dismissal hinged on California's anti-slap laws, a legal shield designed to protect free speech, but one that, critics say, often makes it nearly impossible for public figures to defend themselves against false or exaggerated accusations. The court allowed Baldoni's team until June 23rd to amend 4 of the 7 claims, specifically those related to breach of implied covenant and tortious interference with contract, signaling that this battle is far from finished. In other words, while Lively's team celebrated and the press rushed to publish headlines announcing her victory, the truth is that the dismissal was procedural, not an acquittal, and certainly not a vindication. The judge didn't declare her allegations true. Instead, the decision rested on technicalities meant to protect public speech. For Baldoni supporters, it was a frustrating reminder that in Hollywood, perception often outweighs fact, and the courtroom can sometimes serve as a stage for those who know how to play it. Legal analysts point out that anti-slap laws, while well-intentioned, can be weaponized. These laws were created to protect individuals from being silenced through costly litigation. But in cases like this, they can paradoxically silence the accused, making it nearly impossible to challenge false narratives. Bullies are protected legally, one commentator noted, and the legal system often aids them in continuing the victimization. Justin's legal team emphasized that the court's ruling did not reflect the strength or weakness of his claims, but rather the structural bias of the law itself. Proving defamation requires demonstrating not just that the statements were false, but that they were made with malicious intent, a nearly impossible standard at an early stage, especially when public sentiment and PR spin are already against you. And while Blake Lively's camp was quick to claim victory, sources close to Baldoni's team insist that the case is only beginning. They hint that powerful new evidence is being prepared, evidence that could shift the narrative entirely. Behind the scenes, however, a new layer of controversy is brewing, one that few expected. Observers have begun questioning whether Judge Lyman's brother, Hollywood director Doug Liman, might have indirect ties to Blake Lively, given his previous work within her circles. This connection, though circumstantial, has raised eyebrows among legal watchers who find the coincidence troubling. Could this proximity have influenced how the case unfolded? There's no public proof of interference, but the whispers alone have ignited heated debate about fairness, power, and influence in Hollywood's legal ecosystem. In the meantime, Baldoni's team believes that Lively's portrayal of the case as a total win is a calculated media strategy. After all, the headlines and sound bites focus only on the dismissal, not the fact that much of the case is still alive. According to them, the dismissal gave Lively's PR machine exactly what it needed: a chance to control the narrative before the real evidence surfaces. The defamation claims might have hit a procedural wall for now, but the larger picture, breach of contract, interference, and alleged manipulation, remains unresolved. That's where things could turn ugly, as Baldoni's lawyers prepare to lay out how they believe Lively used behind-the-scenes influence, threats, and legal privilege to gain control over both the film and the public narrative surrounding it. It's worth noting that California's and New York's anti-slap statutes are notoriously tough. And while they were created to protect freedom of expression, they can be exploited as shields for those with power and resources. Critics argue that this system creates an uneven playing field, one where the wealthy can act with impunity while their opponents are left fighting uphill battles. The media's reaction to the June 9th decision only amplified this perception. Within hours, major outlets were running stories framing Lively as vindicated. Headlines like "Blake Lively wins court battle against Baldoni" dominated the feed. But nowhere in those pieces was there mention of how the judge's ruling didn't determine truth or guilt, only procedural status. That's exactly what frustrates Baldoni's supporters. That perception has replaced reality. Anybody can make false accusations, one legal observer said, and your entire life can be destroyed while the system stands by. Still, perhaps the most intriguing and troubling angle of this saga is the alleged smear campaign that Baldoni's side claims was orchestrated against him. His lawyers describe it as untraceable, a whisper network of leaked stories and strategic PR moves designed to tarnish his reputation before any facts could emerge. If that's true, then what we're seeing may not just be a legal fight, but a masterclass in narrative control. A story about who gets to define truth in the age of viral media. Baldoni's supporters argue that the combination of privileged filings, public sympathy, and media framing has created a kind of immunity bubble around Lively. Her allegations, filed under legal privilege, are protected from defamation suits, no matter how damaging or unverified. That means she can make claims in certain filings without fear of being sued for them. For Baldoni, that's a near impossible wall to climb. And yet he's still climbing. His legal team is preparing to amend the claims, confident that they can present stronger evidence showing that the alleged defamation wasn't just false, but malicious, driven by an agenda to control the narrative, seize creative authority, and protect Lively's image at all costs. Then there's the matter of Lively's public behavior following the dismissal. Just hours after the ruling, she was spotted at a Chanel event, smiling for cameras, celebrating what appeared to be a total win. Social media lit up with congratulatory comments, and several celebrities, including Amber Tamblyn, publicly praised her bravery. But many online pointed out that there was little to celebrate. No verdict was reached. No claims were proven. And yet the optics were perfect. A red carpet, a confident smile, and a story that looked cleanly wrapped. Observers couldn't help but draw parallels to the Amber Heard-Johnny Depp saga, where early PR wins eventually collapsed under scrutiny. In this case, the fear for Lively's critics is that her early media dominance may not survive once the amended claims, and the new evidence, hit the court. Her Instagram post following the decision only added to the spectacle. "With love and gratitude for the many who stood by me," she wrote, calling it a moment of solidarity and empowerment. But Baldoni's supporters saw something different. A calculated effort to cement a victory narrative before the next legal round begins. Meanwhile, Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, isn't backing down. In a new statement, he confirmed that 4 of the 7 claims remain active and will be refiled with additional proof and refined allegations. Friedman said his team remains confident, and that new evidence will be brought forward to expose what he calls a distorted and incomplete narrative. Simply put, this isn't over. Not by a long shot. If the allegations of behind-the-scenes influence, selective leaks, and coordinated PR manipulation gain traction, Blake Lively's supposed victory lap could turn into one of the most dramatic reversals Hollywood has seen in years. For now, what's clear is that this case is no longer just about 2 people or even 1 lawsuit. It's about the power of image, influence, and control in modern Hollywood. Whether Blake Lively's version of events holds up, or whether Justin Baldoni's team can prove their claims of manipulation and malice, the outcome will likely redefine how celebrity justice plays out in the court of public opinion. Because in this battle, the real fight isn't just happening in the courtroom, it's happening in headlines, hashtags, and hearts and minds across the internet. And for both sides, the stakes couldn't be higher. The Blake Lively legal saga continues to dominate headlines, and this week's developments add another layer to a story that refuses to quiet down. The latest filings, leaked transcripts, and media statements have sparked debate once again about whether this entire case is about justice, power, or simply control over public narrative. It all starts with Blake Lively's upcoming deposition. Under oath, she'll no longer have the comfort of curated social media captions or finely tuned PR talking points. Instead, it's just direct questioning, the kind where every word matters and every hesitation gets analyzed. What caught attention, however, is her team's unusual request to dictate who would be allowed to depose her, a move that raised eyebrows in legal circles. The judge quickly dismissed that request, reinforcing that this process doesn't bend to celebrity preferences, no matter how carefully presented the image might be. But as this case moves forward, it's clear that what's unfolding goes far beyond a single legal dispute. It's a cultural reflection of how celebrity, media, and public opinion have merged into a modern-day courtroom, one where headlines are often mistaken for evidence. Lively's camp has effectively turned the court of public opinion into an extension of the legal battle itself, framing Justin Baldoni as guilty long before any formal verdict could exist. And that's where many observers say things have gone off the rails. Because this kind of trial by media not only damages reputations, it risks eroding the credibility of real survivors of harassment and abuse. When a case becomes this polarized, facts take a backseat to emotion, and even legitimate claims risk being drowned out by noise and speculation. The irony here is that if Lively's side truly believed their evidence could stand on its own, they'd likely welcome the opportunity to see it all play out in court. Instead, what we're witnessing looks increasingly like a media strategy, one focused less on legal proof and more on public sympathy. Carefully timed interviews, curated statements, and posts designed to align her story with larger cultural causes have painted her as the hero of her own narrative. Meanwhile, Baldoni's legal team, led by Friedman, seems determined to push back. In recent comments, Friedman summed up their position with a simple message: "With the facts on our side, we will march forward with the same confidence we had when this began." It's not just legal rhetoric. It's a promise to fight until the record is set straight, no matter how strong the spin might be. Because make no mistake, while Lively's dismissal of certain claims gave her camp the optics of victory, the legal war is far from over. Her public statements framed the moment as a moral triumph, linking her experience to women's rights causes and resharing messages of solidarity. The result? A powerful image of resilience, but one that critics say was built on selective framing, rather than the full scope of the court's decision. Her PR team deserves credit for precision. They turned what could have been a neutral development into a rallying cry, turning headlines into ammunition. Strategically aligning Lively with advocacy groups and high-profile supporters helped create a near-impenetrable shield around her public persona. The story became less about evidence and more about emotion, less about law and more about optics. It's a masterclass in public relations, but it's also a dangerous game. Because this narrative only works as long as no one digs too deep. Once people start asking questions about timing, about motives, about inconsistencies, the cracks start to show. Independent outlets are beginning to do just that. They've started revisiting the sequence of events that led to Lively's original claims, specifically the fact that they surfaced right as her film's publicity cycle was ramping up. Was it coincidence, or a calculated move to gain leverage during a critical career moment? The mainstream press largely avoided that question, but smaller investigative platforms haven't been so quiet. They're also pointing out another uncomfortable reality. Despite the media framing this as a win for Lively, the broader case still continues. Baldoni's countersuit and defamation filings remain active. His team insists that they've compiled communications, witness accounts, and contractual evidence contradicting key parts of Lively's narrative. If those details reach the courtroom, this story could look very different from the one dominating social media today. And speaking of social media, that's where the battle has arguably been most intense. Lively's posts, carefully written, emotionally resonant, and perfectly timed, have driven much of the public conversation. But for every supportive comment, there's a growing number of users questioning the authenticity of the narrative. Some point to inconsistencies between her court filings and her statements online. Others note that while she's portraying herself as the victim of retaliation, multiple former crew members have since come forward claiming creative and contractual disputes were at the heart of the issue, not harassment. Then there's the other side of the internet, the so-called digital detectives. Independent creators, commentators, and fans have taken it upon themselves to examine every available document, post, and interview. Their findings, while not definitive, suggest multiple discrepancies, timeline mismatches, contradictory statements, and redacted exchanges that paint a less flattering picture than what's seen in public. It's the age of crowdsourced accountability, and in cases like this, it's proving to be a powerful equalizer. The Internet Sleuth Brigade, as some call it, is analyzing everything from filming schedules to archived Instagram captions, connecting dots that mainstream outlets have ignored. And they're finding plenty that doesn't quite add up. At the same time, public sympathy for Justin Baldoni is quietly gaining traction. Despite being painted as the antagonist early on, more people are beginning to question whether he might actually be the one caught in a reputational crossfire. To them, he's become a symbol of how easily narratives can be shaped, and how quickly a person's career can be derailed by headlines, not verdicts. And this brings us to the larger question. What happens when due process loses to public perception? What happens when the media becomes judge, jury, and executioner, while the court itself is still sorting through the evidence? Because in this case, that's exactly what's happening. major outlets rushed to label the dismissal of certain filings as a total victory, glossing over the fact that the main legal fight remains unresolved. The tone of the coverage, celebratory, uncritical, and often one-sided, helped cement an impression that might not survive deeper scrutiny. It's the modern PR cycle at work. Control the first headline, and you control the story. Still, some journalists are beginning to shift tone, acknowledging that this case is far from black and white. Several legal analysts have pointed out that both sides have compelling evidence and that the eventual outcome could surprise many who've already picked a side. That nuance, however, doesn't trend. Outrage does, and Blake Lively's story, with its blend of celebrity, activism, and courtroom drama, has all the ingredients for viral attention. The tragedy is that what's lost in all of this is truth itself. As for Justin Baldoni, he's keeping a lower profile publicly, but his legal filings suggest confidence. His attorneys have maintained that their evidence, including messages, on-set testimony, and agent communications, paints a very different picture of what happened behind the scenes. They're not just fighting for a win. They're fighting to reclaim a reputation that's been severely damaged in the process. Meanwhile, Hollywood watches closely. Because this case, for all its personal drama, sets a precedent, not just for how future disputes are handled, but for how quickly an image can be built or destroyed in the digital age. It shows that one viral headline can undo years of credibility, and that winning in public doesn't always mean you've won in court. For now, the dust hasn't settled. Blake Lively continues to post inspirational messages about strength and justice, while Baldoni's team quietly prepares for the next round of discovery. The next phase could bring depositions, cross-examinations, and evidence releases that finally shed light on what really happened between the two sides. And as that happens, the media will no doubt keep spinning. But audiences, increasingly skeptical and better informed, may not be as easy to sway this time. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about two celebrities in conflict. It's about power, perception, and the fine line between advocacy and manipulation. It's about what happens when legal systems collide with social media ecosystems, and how reputations can rise or fall based on who controls the narrative first. For now, all we can do is watch the story unfold. The truth may take time, but as this case shows, time has a way of cutting through even the most polished facade. And if this battle has taught the public anything, it's that the loudest voice doesn't always belong to the one who's right. This is the Blake Lively-Justin Baldoni case, where fame meets fallout, and every statement, every leak, and every post could be the spark that turns the tide. And as this story continues to unfold, one thing is certain. This case has become far more than a personal feud. It's a mirror held up to Hollywood itself, exposing the fragile balance between truth, image, and influence. Whether Justin Baldoni manages to clear his name or Blake Lively reclaims her credibility, the outcome will ripple beyond both of them, shaping how future allegations, careers, and reputations are handled in an industry that thrives on perception. For now, all eyes remain on the courtroom, the documents, and the next wave of statements that could change everything once again. Because in a battle where every headline carries weight, the truth isn't just what's proven, it's what survives. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned as we continue to track every update, every filing, and every twist in this developing legal saga. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dive coverage as we separate fact from fiction in Hollywood's most unpredictable courtroom showdown yet.